I used AI to automate my entire job search, and it got me offers at multiple big tech companies. But I'm not just talking about using ChatGPT to rewrite my resume. I'm talking about building actual systems that worked while I slept. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly how I did this using Claude Code, and by the end of the video, I'll show you my exact stats of applications, interviews, and offers that I landed using this process. There were 3 things that I built that completely changed the game for me. A job scraper that monitored every company I cared about in real time, an automated outreach system that would find recruiter emails and draft personalized messages, and a resume tailoring pipeline that would customize my resume to job descriptions whenever I wanted. Let's get into it. The first thing I built was a job alert system. And before I get into how I built it, let me explain why this matters so much. Timing is everything in recruiting. I've talked about this before, but applying to a job posting early, within a few hours of it dropping, can be the difference between getting a call back and never hearing back at all. Companies aren't reviewing applications in one big batch at the end. Recruiters are seeing them as they come in. So if you apply on day 1, your resume is sitting at the top of a small pile. If you apply 2 weeks later, you're buried under thousands of others. The problem is, seeing when roles drop across 20 or 30 different companies manually is a full-time job in itself. You'd have to be checking every company's website every single day, and even then, you'd still miss things. So, I use Claude Code to solve that. For anyone who doesn't know, Claude Code is basically an AI that can write code and run things for you on your computer. You just talk to it like a human and it will run different actions for you. I told it what I wanted, a script that would monitor every company on my list by scraping various GitHubs and career portals, and it built it out in a second. It would check each source on a set schedule, and as soon as a job posting came up that fit my criteria, I would get a notification about the job title, location, and a direct link to apply. I woke up one morning, saw a notification that a role had just gone live at a company I really wanted to work at, and I applied within 20 minutes. That kind of edge is impossible to get otherwise. Once I knew which roles I was applying to, the next thing I wanted to do was reach out to the recruiters directly. And this is the step that most people skip, either because they feel awkward about reaching out to recruiters, or they simply just don't know how to find recruiter emails. But here's the thing, a direct message or email to a recruiter before or after you apply can seriously help. It shows initiative and puts a name to the application, which most recruiters appreciate. And then you have to find their email. The problem is, finding recruiter contact info is so tedious. You're manually searching through LinkedIn to find the recruiter, then you have to worry about if they actually support the team that you're applying to, and finally you have to find their email. It takes forever, and it doesn't scale if you're applying to hundreds of companies. So I automated the entire thing. Here's how the pipeline worked. I used Claude Code and connected it to Apify, which is a web scraping tool, and had it search through LinkedIn and other public sources to find recruiters at companies in my list. It would filter out their name, title, and any other relevant information, and only show me the recruiters that actually mattered for the roles I was applying to. Then I connected it to Apollo via MCP and had it find the actual email address for every single recruiter. Apollo has a huge database, so the hit rate was really solid. But the part that saved me the most time was what came next. Once I had the recruiter's name, company, and email, I had Claude draft up a personalized outreach message to each one. Not a generic cold email, a specific message that mentioned the exact role I was applying to, mentioned something relevant about the company, and tied it all back to my background. Then, using the Google MCP, it would save each email as a draft directly in my Gmail. So all I had to do was go to my inbox, read through all the drafts, and hit send on all of them that I liked. Instead of spending hours creating each message from scratch, I was spending 30 seconds reviewing and sending. That's the difference. It's not replacing your judgment, it's just removing all the busy work so you can move faster. The last piece was probably the one that had the most direct impact on my callback rate. And I've talked about ATS before, so I won't go too deep on the background. But the short version is, most resumes never even reach a human. They get filtered out by software that scans for keywords and relevance before a recruiter even sees them. The problem that most people run into is that they have one resume that they send everywhere. And that resume might be great, but the problem is, if it doesn't speak the language of the specific job description you're applying to, the ATS is gonna score it low and move on. What I did was use Claude Code to build a custom tailoring pipeline. I'd paste in the job description and my resume, and it would analyze which keywords were needed in the job description, and it would recommend different ways I could change my bullet points minimally while integrating those keywords naturally. Not rewriting everything from scratch, just small, impactful changes that were bound to make my ATS score go up. If I liked the changes, I would accept them and Claude would make the changes directly into my resume. And the results were immediately noticeable. My callback rate went significantly up after I started doing this. Roles that I probably would have been filtered out before were now getting me a recruiter screen. Because the same experience, just framed in a slightly different way, can be the difference in looking like a strong candidate for the role and a weak one. The best part is, Claude understood context. It wasn't just doing a keyword dump. It would give me specific phrases that I could integrate while keeping it naturally sounding. So I still had full control over my resume, but the process of tailoring it went from 30 minutes to 2 minutes. Between these three systems, I went from manually grinding applications and hoping for the best to a system that was smarter and honestly a lot less stressful. I was applying earlier than most people, reaching recruiters that most people could never even contact, and having a resume that was optimized for every single role. If you want to know exactly how I set up any of these, let me know in the comments and I'll do a full breakdown, part by part. And now for my application stats over 2 months. I applied to 265 roles, got interviews from 9 of them, and ended up landing 5 offers. If you want to learn more about the recruiting process, follow along.